I found out about my wife's unfaithfulness, and when my stepchildren told me to calm down, reminding me that I wasn't their biological father, it crushed me. In the end, I divorced her and left them with nothing. My heart felt heavy, and my eyes were red from crying. I had always believed in the importance of marriage. When I married Susan 5 years ago, I didn't just marry her. I accepted her children, Jake and Emma, as well. At the time, they were 10 and 8, and their biological father had been out of the picture for a long time. I stepped in willingly because I loved Susan and wanted to give her kids the life they deserved. I went to soccer games, helped with science projects, and made Christmases unforgettable. Being a stepdad had its difficulties. They sometimes reminded me that I wasn't their real father, especially when I set rules or said no to unreasonable requests. But I believed that one day they'd understand. Then came the betrayal. At first, it was small things. Susan started staying late at work more often. Her phone was always in her hand, and she would smile at messages that she wouldn't show me. One night, I did something I'd never done before. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. What I found was gut-wrenching. Explicit messages and photos exchanged with her coworker. My stomach twisted, and the world around me felt like it was falling apart. I confronted her right away, and instead of apologizing, she blamed me for being too controlling. She said this wouldn't have happened if I had made her feel wanted. It was the ultimate betrayal. I had given everything, my time, my love, my resources, and this was how I was repaid. A few days later, I sat down with Jake and Emma to tell them that Susan and I were getting a divorce. I thought they'd be upset, maybe even cry, but instead, Jake just shrugged and said, "Whatever, you're not our real dad anyway." Emma added, "Yeah, you should just chill out. Mom says you're overreacting." That was a final straw. The next day, I filed for divorce. Thankfully, I had a solid prenup. Everything I brought into the marriage, my house, my savings, my car, was mine. Susan had always thought the prenup was just a formality, something we'd never need. But it turned out to be the smartest decision I ever made. During the divorce, Susan demanded that I continue supporting her kids financially. I calmly reminded the court that they had a father, and I wasn't legally obligated to support children who openly disrespected me and denied my role as their dad. The judge agreed, and the look on Susan's face when she realized she wouldn't get a dime was priceless. She'd have to move out, find a job, and explain to Jake and Emma why their comfortable life was coming to an end. The day they moved out was surreal. The house felt empty, but for the first time in years, there was peace. I began rediscovering old hobbies, woodworking, hiking, and even taking a few cooking classes. I reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from during the marriage. About 6 months later, I got a call from Susan. She was crying, telling me how hard life had become for her and the kids. They had moved into a small apartment. Jake was acting out in school, and Emma was angry all the time. She begged me to help. "You made your bed," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "Now you have to lie in it." She tried to guilt-trip me, saying the kids miss me, but I knew better. They didn't miss me. They missed what I provided, and I wasn't about to be their safety net anymore. A year later, I heard through mutual friends that Susan's affair had ended in disappointment. Her co-worker left her as soon as the divorce was finalized. She was now working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and the perfect life she once had was shattered. Meanwhile, I was thriving, happier and more at peace than I had been in years. I eventually met someone new, a woman who valued me for who I was, not just for what I could offer. We're taking things slow, but for the first time in a long time, I feel truly happy. As for Jake and Emma, I genuinely hope they're doing well. After all, they're just kids, and their mother's actions were not their fault. But through all of this, I've learned a valuable lesson. Respect is earned, not given, and family isn't just about blood relations. When people ask if I regret walking away, my response is always the same: not for a single moment. Over time, I realized something important. Holding on to anger and bitterness only weighs you down. Susan and her children were a chapter in my life, but they don't define who I am. I chose to focus on what I could control, my own happiness, my future, and the relationships that truly mattered. Lily, my new partner, has been a breath of fresh air. She accepted my past without judgment, and together, we've built something based on mutual respect and shared goals. Lily also has a son, Ryan, from a previous relationship. This time, I approached things differently. I made sure to set clear boundaries and took my time getting to know him. Ryan is a wonderful kid, polite, curious, and full of humor. In many ways, he reminded me of why I had once wanted to be a father figure. He didn't see me as a replacement for his biological dad, and I never tried to be. Instead, we bonded over simple things like building model airplanes and watching Saturday morning cartoons together. Then, about 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Jake and Emma at a local grocery store. They were taller now, more mature, but there was a noticeable weariness in their eyes. Jake, who had always been the more outspoken one, hesitated before offering a quick greeting. It threw me off guard, but I smiled and asked how they were. Jake looked down, his feet shuffling nervously. "Mom's having a tough time," he muttered. Emma, standing beside him, added, "We miss how things used to be." For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. These kids weren't responsible for their mother's decisions, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't open that door again. "I hope things get better for you," I said gently, yet firmly. "Take care of yourselves." They nodded silently and walked away. I could feel their eyes on me as I turned down another aisle. It wasn't closure in the traditional sense, but it was enough to help me release any lingering guilt. Fast forward to today, and I can honestly say that my life has never been better. Lily and I married last year in a small, intimate ceremony. Ryan was my best man, and I was surrounded by my closest friends. Recently, we bought a cozy house on the edge of town, complete with a spacious yard and a workshop where I've been crafting furniture in my free time. Ryan often helps me, and I've been teaching him how to use the tools safely. It's become our thing, a way to bond and create something meaningful together. Sometimes, I think back on the life I left behind, not with regret, but with gratitude for the lessons it taught me. That chapter showed me the importance of self-respect, of not settling for less than I deserve, and of finding joy in the right places. The story of Susan and her kids is one I rarely tell, but when I do, it serves as a reminder of how far I've come. Life has a strange way of teaching you lessons you never expected. Sometimes, the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the most deeply. But if you're willing to walk away from the pain, something better may be waiting for you on the other side. I didn't just survive the betrayal. I thrived because of it, and for me, that's the ultimate revenge.